Many thanks to the sports team as well for bringing us the very latest from the world of sports. I was starting off the biggest, and even for whether or not the standard of living is good enough for everybody. And we'll get on to the phone lines with our guest pretty shortly. We'll speak to Dr. Jonathan Asante-Otri pretty shortly this morning and gauge his thoughts as to whether or not the question is simple, Helen, that whether or not the president's approval rating is on the decline, and if there's cause for concern for the NDC government, amongst many other things. But in addition, what should they be doing to ensure that Ghanaians are optimistic? Because amongst many things, there's the expectation of dreams being satisfied. But I think one thing a lot of people are looking forward to as well is oral. Operation Recover.
That's
or
right.
Loot.
That's right. Very important.
That will be a major doing for the government or a major undoing. That's most certain.
For sure. Because it was one of the biggest campaign promises to ensure that any and everybody that had looted state funds was brought to book, and that these funds would be recovered. To the extent that people are relying on some of this recovered funds to actually be put towards development. Now, shout out to Global Info Analytics for the work that they've been doing in this space and being meticulous in this data collection adventure that they have sought to embark on. And to recap, Alfred Appiah, he's a data analyst. He summarizes what Global Info Analytics has captured this way. I think you've made mention of some of these pointers, but just to rehash what has been said or the work that has been done by Global Info Analytics. And he says the latest Global Info Analytics poll should be a concern for the government, as there are early warning signs that some of its goodwill may be waning. The percentage of voters who feel the country is going in the right direction is down by 5 points. The president's approval rating is down by 6 points. The government's performance rating is down by 8 points. The percentage of voters optimistic that their standard of living will improve in the future is down by 5 points. The percentage of voters who feel the government is fighting corruption, oral, is down by 5 points. He ends by saying the city's weak performance in Q3, the slow action on oral, and inadequate momentum in the fight against galamsey could be some of the underlying factors. And I think that those are 3 points I can certainly agree with. So again, the city's weak performance in Q3.
That's Q3.
That's right. The slow action of oral, which a number of you touch on whenever we open the phone lines concerning corruption.
It was one thing I wanted to mention as well.
Oral. And then you have the inadequate momentum in the fight against galamsey. Yesterday, we took you through some very disturbing numbers, figures, and stats as far as our food, soil, water, and aquatic whatever is concerned. So it's definitely something that the NDC should be thinking about and listening to. They've demonstrated in times past that they do take the work of Musa Dankwa and Global Info Analytics seriously. The recent example I can cite is the work he did in Akwetia for the by-election. And he mentions that once he had identified their weak spots, the NDC actually approached him for some more data, and there was a turnaround in that area. So that is something that I'm sure they will be picking up on this time around, the reasons for this decline in the points and percentages for the president and the government overall.
Let's get onto the phone lines. Now that we've laid the foundation, Stephen Osei-Achiao is a political marketing and strategic communications expert with the University of Education, Winneba. Let's connect with him right now. And that conversation we're having is pretty simple. You can as well be a part of it and find us on our various social media handles as well. 3FM Sunrise, hashtag 3FM Sunrise, and leave a message for us as well in that regard. Mr. Osei-Achiao, I appreciate you joining us this morning. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
And I trust that all is well with you.
By God's grace, all is well with me. I hope you are fine too, yourself and Helen.
Yes, we're both well. We're both well, and we're appreciative as well. Let's begin to delve into what it is that we're seeing. in terms of these latest numbers as well? Expected, considering that the honeymoon phase never really lasts forever. At some point, Ghanaians will begin to demand their own pound of flesh for you. Has it taken extra long, or this has been too short for us to begin to have a conversation as to whether or not the president's approval rating is and the honeymoon is over?
Right, thank you so much. I want to say a good morning to our good people of Ghana and our listeners, and also a good morning to my Vice Chancellor, Professor Jobson Mutual, and my Pro-Vice Chancellor, and my UTAG members in UEW. Yes, this issue of the Musa Dankwa analysis and the issue of honeymoon, yes, I think that we are in the 9th month. And then if you listen to, I think, the president's first engagement with the media, I think he mentioned that there were so many issues to take care of. So, well, Ghanaians will study what you are doing. And 9 months, I would say it's long, but it's not too long. I think that maybe after 1 year, we can actually look at things very well. But the honeymoon, looking at how things are going, the analysis for Musa Dankwa should be a concern for the presidency, in as much as he has the goodwill of Ghanaians and with the maximum support and all that. The president should be very mindful and pay particular attention to the analysis we have now, the percentages that we have now, for him to re-strategize if there is a need. But of course, it is not too long, and I wouldn't say it isn't too short as well, because, for honeymoon, you can't request for, yes, you requested for a honeymoon, but you can't say that you need a honeymoon of 3 years to enable you come back and then get work done. So I think we are within range. Ghanaians will study, and then the comments will start coming. And thankfully, with the good work of the global info analysis, I think that yes, the president should be concerned and then re-strategize.
In your own understanding, I mean, you've mentioned the fact that honeymoons don't stay forever, and you're even expecting that it could do a year. You recounted as well the president's media engagement. From his standpoint and the argument he put forth vis-a-vis these numbers that we're beginning to see, where do you think it's beginning to go downward for him? Reason why we're having a conversation as to the beginning of a decline, if it is.
Well, okay, right. Thank you. So I think Musa Dankwa's work clearly shows the direction. It shows that it boils down to Galamsey. That is the heightened one is Galamsey. Then you come to more or less the oral, and then the issues surrounding the city. But you see, the president, yes, he's done 9 months, and then what we will be looking at is as to whether he's been able to achieve most of the things that he said he was going to do. Now, let's come down to the issue of Galamsey. Galamsey, it was a message that one way or the other got the NPP out of power. And now the president is in, and the president is trying his best to actually approach it in a particular manner. Now, if you look at the global info analytics, it tells us that averagely there is a decline of 5%. If you are to put all the president's goodwill, his policies, his government work and all that, you look at an average of about 5% decline in the will that is the hope that Ghanaians had within the presidency and the NDC government. Now, the Galamsey is something that the president has to actually look at it and deal with it very well. And that has contributed to the numbers. Now, if you look at the city, yes, the city more or less is depreciating, but if you are to compare that with what the president came in, that is, he met with his government, you are looking at somewhere around 16 cities, and now it's around 13, if I'm very right, 12 or 13. So you look at it, and then yes, the city is appreciating, though, not so it's depreciating. But then, if you are to do a comparative analysis, you still want to put the president's work, the president and his government's work, way ahead of what he came to meet. So I wouldn't even want to go into that tangent. My interest is the oral and then the galamsey. And that is what is actually affecting the presidency. And the president must look at it critically and having a background of most of the things that the NDC mentioned or spoke against when they were in opposition with respect to galamsey as to what is happening now.
And if we get into a bit more of the details as well, we realize that party affiliation, we're seeing a lot more persons affiliated with the NDC, right? So we see a decline in terms of the trend, the party affiliations trend. We're seeing in July it was 42%, 44%. In September it's at 42%. We look at the NPP, that's dropped from 30 to 27% in terms of respondents who are affiliated to the two major parties. Floating voters has moved from 15% to 17%, and then the persons who did not disclose have moved from 8 to 10%. In that detail, we're finding out that a lot more of the respondents are NDC affiliated persons, and yet we're seeing a decline in terms of the president's approval rating overall. Surely that should be a concern for the government if within the poll, when we bore down into the numbers, we're seeing that more of the respondents are associated or affiliated with them, and yet there appears to be a decline of some sort in their approval of the work of the president.
Yes, I agree that yes, the highest participants are those affiliated to the NDC, and that should tell you that the decline in the numbers, as you rightly stated, is a wake-up call to the president. You know, the fact that people are affiliated to specific political parties doesn't mean that they should always agree with everything the party does. So those who engaged in this very exercise are being very fair and very frank. Myself and you, if someone happens to be affiliated to the NDC and galamsey is a threat to the person's livelihood and the person's family and the entire country, anybody who is very reasonable and very fair will tell you that I'm not going to support such an act. So of course it is expected that's why I mentioned that the galamsey is the target, is the main thing. And that is the fair response from the people, regardless of they being affiliates of the NDC or the NPP. And it is good that the majority of those who engage in this exercise are NDC, and they are telling the president that we are not happy. And they be not being happy is because of the way galamsey is being treated. If we are to go into the details of this galamsey fight, its menace and all that, you and I will agree. There is this saying that we say the internet doesn't forget. But the right thing is that the press or the media does not forget. Now, they've mentioned so many things. A lot of rhetoric went into this galamsey fight. The president himself, his account, his Facebook account, the Okujato, the Sameh, Jemfis, the Sam George, and the rest. Now, you make a statement just about a year ago saying that the president of Ghana, which then was the
Nana Akufo-Addo, President Akufo-Addo.
Nana Akufo-Addo, he can easily proclaim call for the state of emergency, and it shouldn't be too difficult for him to do, without knowing that you soon be coming to power. Now the question is that if it is not so difficult for him to do, then the president John Mahama should be able to do it easily. Now, if you go down to Article 31, which you and I know, it gives the president the power to give that declaration. And the Constitution says that he should do it with an advice from the Council of State. And based on that advice, if he is to come out and say that, yes, there's a state of emergency at these specific places, which he rightly stated that he can't, the president was clear in his last SONA that he can't mention or state the state of emergency, proclaim the state of emergency without identifying. He can't declare it without identifying the specific locations, and that is going to affect several locations. Yes, he's right, but you have the power. You only need to consult the Council of State, then you declare, and after 7 days you need to get approval from parliament. Now you are looking at a parliament where you have the supreme majority. So you see, so the president, in as much as he stated in his last engagement with the press, the media, that he will need to, we have a lot of avenues to exhaust, security measures to exhaust, for which reason the declaration of the state of emergency should be the last resort. I agree with him, but here is the case: you have the supreme power, and if it keeps on going in this manner, then the state of emergency is something that, if he is able to do, will redeem him and also help him to gain the trust that he had with the party affiliates and even Ghanaians as a whole.
Right.
And for that matter, it will increase.
Let me hold you here and go on to the other phone lines right now. Dr. Jonathan Asante-Okyere is a political analyst with the University of Cape Coast as well. He's joining us on the phone lines on this same subject matter. Doc, appreciate you speaking to us as always, and a very good morning to you as well.
Good morning, Audio.
Doc, fire on the mountain for the NDC. Their goodwill is dwindling, some say very fast.
Well, let me say good morning once again to your good self and your listeners and those in the studio. I think it is too early, to draw such a conclusion with respect to the goodwill of the government, and for that matter, the approval rating of the president. I think that we can never have a situation where the president will tick all the boxes. But I'm listening to Mr. Bentel on this, and he feels that so far the president has really done well. That being said, I think that say there's still an albatross around the neck of the president and the current government, to be precise. The point is that it is a corporate damage that successive governments have suffered. But because of the propaganda effect of what might have been said in the past, that is what is being used against the president. And unfortunately, there seems to be some groundswell effect or attack on the president with respect to currency. And I believe that that is the more reason why his goodwill might have deteriorated a bit. Apart from that, if you look at, in generality, where the economy finds itself, what they inherited, I think that by far they have done creditably well. And that also reminds me that, look, the truth also ought to be accepted in the sense that the president appears more committed to the fight against currency than the previous government. That in itself should be a capital. It should be a feather in his cap, and obviously to affect his goodwill. Because in areas like corruption, they're doing very well. We are not hearing record scandals here and there. In terms of the citi's performance against the dollar, the interest rate policy rate from Bank of Ghana, the debt to GDP ratio, look at the announcement of the big push. All of these could easily have been derailed by this particular menace called currency. But I'm really happy that they seem not to be, to be reneging on that particular responsibility that he has on his hands.
A lot of people, Doc, a lot of people don't see it that way, because even on the subject of LI 2462, it's taken us almost a year, and despite it being a promise, that is yet to be fulfilled, and we're waiting for the next parliament to come on board. The demand is for a declaration of a state of emergency, because yesterday, amongst many things, the details which are coming from different reports suggest our food outside of the rivers is being poisoned as well, and the president's posturing during that media engagement was not so encouraging. There is a suggestion as well that corruption is growing from this report, even though the government promised to deal with graft and take on persons who stole from the state in the previous administration. These are the basis upon which there is that decline, but you say it's propaganda.
Well, it is left for the NDC communicators, the government communicators to ensure that they're able to communicate properly what the government so far and the presidency, has done. If they are not able to put these communications in the right perspective, it will harm the image of government. No two ways about that. So, certain decisions have been taken. It's early days yet. We need to see how they will materialize in terms of its effect. But you see, declaring a state of emergency, I don't think it's anything difficult. But the effect, the unanticipated effect, right, is something that the nation must be thinking about. Now, declaring state of emergency is in itself a security issue. Now, when you do so, remember that it's definitely going to affect those who engage in galamsey and those who do not engage in galamsey. So you have to bear that in mind too. We also have to bear in mind that certainly the human rights and all those things of these areas that have been declared as state of emergency will be equally affected. And in no time, many things could easily happen in terms of extrajudicial killings and so on and so forth. And that in itself will also go a long way to harm the image of government and the state. It is very appalling that we hear news to the effect that the food that we are eating are becoming more poisonous or contaminated. And I think that in itself will not have happened just within 8 months or 9 months of the new government. It is a trickle-down effect. And of course, it does also mean that our government, current government, should not be seen doing something about it. For me, if the state of emergency is the way to go, the president must go ahead to do so. And you see, I want to always listen to views from Ewulai, views from Dr. Kennedy, views from Senior Musi, Erastus, and so on and so forth. Not those who are politically, contaminated in the head, because a previous government cannot pass LI 2462 and still have the moral right to come and criticize the current government because they have not declared state of emergency. What were you thinking when you were approving LI 2462? Now, this current government says that as long as one parliament resumes, they will clear that 2462. Probably the president might have been ill-advised from the beginning, and so he did not see the need to do so. Now he sees the need to, take out, repeal that particular LI 2462. That in itself will go a long way to prevent a situation where people who are miscreants and unscrupulous could be entering our forest and be doing the unthinkable. We still have a long way to go. The president must still be called upon to do more than what he's doing. No two ways about it, because government is an existential threat for all of us. It has no political color.
Right.
So we need to forget about the political implications of things of that nature. If you're not alive, there is nothing like politics.
From what the both of you are telling me this morning, it does suggest that the fight against illegal mining inarguably will be the biggest task for the current administration. The success in being able to fight this will determine whether or not Ghanaians view them as having done well despite all of the economic gains you've been speaking to. I'll start off with you first, Dr. Santiocho, then I'll come to you, Ms. Jose.
Yes, let me finish. So I'll have a meeting early morning. Yeah, I want to go ahead.
So I'm asking that it looks like the fight against galamsey will be all defining for whether or not this government is a success or not, devoid of all of the economic gains they may make.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when the president, met the press, after everything, everything that he said, his response with respect to galamsey became the topical issue for the media. And so I told government and the NDC and their allies that if they are not careful, galamsey will be an albatross around their neck, and that could possibly affect their fortunes in a not too distant future. That probably compels the president, maybe to do more in terms of some calculated attacks, taking over, retrieving certain forests, and so on and so forth, because the president wants to leave a legacy. And that legacy must survive with time. And you cannot do so when something that affects the very existence of everybody in this country and the very existence of your legacy, you cannot in any way gloss over that. And I still believe that the president is doing well, in that area. And I think that at the end of the day, you succeed. Because we don't have to forget that that area has a lot of money. It has a lot of cartel within that area. You have people bearing arms. That in itself is militating against the community. In these areas where these things of that nature are done, from fighting, militating against the community, taking up, their own destinies in their hands. And so I think that in a not too distant future, if the government, the president, and his support group, upsides, and all those who matter, who are stakeholders within this country, we don't tackle this particular issue head on, whichever way you look at it, the opposition will latch on it, and then in no time, they will gain that kind of currency and acceptability.
There's a concern of oral as well, just quickly, that enough is not being done. We've seen persons within the government or supporters of the party wanting to go after the Attorney General even, and the fact that there's very little to no action in dealing with persons who have stolen. That also is of serious concern to many.
Well, I think that the mere fact that the General Secretary spoke about something of that sort or became a whistleblower to that effect, we don't know whether it was channeled towards the Attorney General and his assassins. They said NDC lawyers or party lawyers. I've forgotten the phraseology that he used. That in itself could also affect the goodwill of government. But it is better to make the issue in the past than it ran its ugly head, and then we now using the process to cure it. Our fight against corruption has been more reactionary than proactionary. And so if we have to be swift, we have to be proactive. What that means is that you shine the light on it so that those who have the intent of doing something of that sort, or rather, decide not to do anything of that sort. And that in itself will ensure that corruption is nipped in the bud.
Doc, I'll leave you so that you can go on to your meetings. But Ms. Osei, let's return to you on that subject matter of Galamsey, because even in our conversation this morning, that's come up a number of times. It is looking more and more like a failure on that front will mean a failure in all other things for this government, considering its implications, health, and call it what?
Yes, thank you. So as you rightly stated, it's going to be, if care is not taken, the presidency and his government, they are going to be judged based on their performance, how they actually tried handling this Galamsey issue. And I agree with Doc when what he said, that this Galamsey has been there. It's not that it started just 9 months ago. It has been there where the president himself is aware. Now, in handling this, he should be able to strategize on how to handle it. He needs a strategy, and that strategy should be a very good one, a strategy that will give hope to Ghanaians. Now, the president in July 2024, 7 July 2024, he made a statement and on his X account. And then the statement went, if you permit me, I will grant amnesty to people convicted of Galamsey because those who are in prison for Galamsey are not the actual perpetrators of Galamsey. If somebody must be imprisoned, it must be the DCs and the ministers who are doing the Galamsey, not the people they are employing. If you have to go by this, in solving this issue of Galamsey, I think the president rightly stated, it appears that there is a specific group that are more responsible for Galamsey, regardless of they being in the MPP or in the NDC. The president should be able to target these people and then make sure that they are dealt with. As he rightly stated that there are other security measures that have not been exhausted. The president should catch the security measures, those in charge of these security agencies, to target these MCs and DCs and these ministers, since they are very much aware of those who are behind it. Like they engaged the MPP, I think regional chairperson for Ashanti region. Yes,
Chairman
Wuntumi's issue had everything to do with Galamsey. So the fact that they're able to identify certain persons who are behind Galamsey or illegal mining or whatsoever, they should be able to target them using these security agencies to solve the issue. And I will still say that declaring a state of emergency is very easy because he has the absolute power. But then if the president says that we have enough to exhaust before going to our last resort, then he should let that work start so that Ghanaians will have hope in what he has said. Because the constituencies, the assemblies, those who are engaged in it, they are known. So they can easily charge on those people and then give Ghanaians that very hope. Yes, you are burning, champaigns and then tracks and all that. That is fine, but it is still happening. But we also have to look at it very well. You see, Miracles Abuaje, I've seen his series of
press engagements at Galamsey Riddled Rivers and all of that.
Exactly. But Miracles should know that the Galamsey didn't start just 9 months ago. Where he talked about the Agona Kwenyako. I am a UTAG member, a president of UTAG in University of Education, Winneba. When we embarked on the Galamsey strike in October 2024, I was traveling and I went through the Kwenyako area. I saw the Ayensi River and I parked my car and I asked some of the community folks and wanting to know what is this also as a result of the rampant Galamsey issue. And they said yes. And that it was even affecting the water supply and all that. I spoke with some people and some persons within that area. We need to look at this thing critically. Something that has been created some years ago cannot be solved just 9 months into his presidency. But as I said, since they are aware of the people who are actually responsible, those behind, those who are financing Galamsey, they should be able to be targeting those people. Targeting those persons, if they are within the MPP or they are within the NDC, the security forces should be able to target them. Then that stoppage, the menace that is creating for us can stop. Then it will give Ghanaians that very hope. I'm not saying that the moment these people are arrested or these people are imprisoned, the waters are going to be clean. No. But at least if you're able to secure these places and to stop for a while, then we know that at least we are inching towards moving to us solving the issues of Galamsey. But if these things are not done, then it becomes a problem for the presidency. So they need a strategy, a very serious strategy to do that.
Right then, I want to thank you as well for joining us this morning here on the show. And certainly it's a conversation that we'll continue to have, because the big question will be asked as to whether or not the government is doing enough, not just in the fight against Galamsey, but in all other spheres. Even though people mention their standard of living is still quite positive, at the end, the end, we're having this conversation about Galamsey and then corruption as well. But I appreciate you speaking to us as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's Stephen Osei-Achiang. He is a political marketing and strategic communications expert with the University of Education, Winneba. And so, Helen, just like we were saying, it does appear it's all about Galamsey. And that will dominate the conversation, because all throughout the week we've been having different types of conversations about it, and it looks like it's not going to go away anytime soon.
That's right. I think we are even more alert to the dangers of Galamsey, the alarming amounts of poisonous material that's finding its way into our water bodies, into our food. I mean, we repeat this every single morning. We're beginning to sound like a broken record, but it's for good cause, because it's very, very alarming. And also, you juxtapose that against what this government said whilst they were campaigning, and in particular what the president at the time said when he was flag bearer of the NDC. There's always this argument that things look quite different when you're in the space than they do from afar. But now that you're in the space, the people have given you the power, the mandate to do what is right. In particular, repealing LI 2462. We're told to wait until Parliament reconvenes to see that being repealed. I recall at some point in the year listening to Felix Kwatio-Fosu, spokesperson for the president, mentioning some sort of legal ramifications and judgment debts that may occur if we are to repeal this, because some companies have already been given the go-ahead. I'm guessing some paperwork has been signed.
Yeah.
But I think the people of Ghana would rather take judgment debt over death.
Absolutely. Judgment debt over death.
Judgment debt over death, if that's what is going to happen. Yes, I know no government wants to deal with these ramifications, but at this point, we don't know what the true consequences are going to be, what kind of strange illnesses we're calling for ourselves. And then also oral, Operation Recover All Loots. We're actually still waiting for another presser from the Attorney General. He said that we had
a rumble in the jungle.
Thank you.
We were waiting to.
We had heard Thriller in Manila. Then we were now awaiting Rumble in the Jungle. That one never came. I've been waiting for it like a blockbuster. And in fact, now I think most people want to see some action beyond the presses, beyond the sensational. You almost become numb or immune to some of these headlines, because really, after you've heard all the news and your jaw has dropped at some of the astronomical amounts, what next? Really, what next? And there are many people that are still very pained and aggrieved by the fact that the last government's priorities just didn't seem to be in tandem with what the people needed. National Cathedral, the amount went from however much it was to now 97 million.
Yeah.
A country like Ghana, with all our economic woes, the first thing I want to see is some action on the National Cathedral, because what a waste. $97 million, and what do we have to show for it?
A giant pit.
It's devastating.
How much did it cost us to build the UGMC?
I don't even know.
Because I think that the figures are within those ranges.
The Pokwasi interchange were told
Absolutely.
94, was it 94 million something US dollars? Something tangible that you can see. I think when you juxtapose it that way, people are able to, visualize what exactly we're talking about. There's been a lot of wastage, and so we need to see some action in that department as well. And the warning bells have been sounded now, and the NDC government, I'm sure, is paying attention. If they are not, they should be paying attention, because the people are now more awake, more discerning. And whilst we still have a lot of partisanship that permeates every aspect of our lives, you also have a growing number of Ghanaians who say we simply want the right things to be done. We saw how things were for people in the last administration, a lot of the angst, the agitation that seemingly fell on deaf ears, and people don't want that to happen again.
So nearly half of what we've used is going to... So almost half of what we used to construct the UGMC is what's gone into the cathedral pit. There are a lot of infrastructure that we've put up which didn't cost us $97 million. And to think of the fact that we've pumped $97 million into that, and all we have is a giant crater where people were swimming in some months ago. It's a cause for serious concern.
And you have people
actually
who cannot pay for their dialysis. We're drinking poisoned water, eating all manner of things. Kidney diseases were told, on the rise. Can you imagine what $97 million could do for a country like Ghana?
A lot.
Exactly.
A lot. But we'll get into our next topic for the morning. It has to do with the subject of Galamsey. And interestingly, yesterday, the minister was speaking, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister was speaking yesterday at a media outlet where he says that water bodies and some other areas will be declared security zones pretty shortly. We'll hear from the minister when we return from the break, and then we get into that, because The big question that will be asked is how different will that be from a declaration of a state of emergency? If our water and rivers are to become security zones, what would it mean? Is that a state of emergency in another clothing? Possibly. That's one of the many questions we'll be asking on the 3FM Sunrise 18. We'll go for these quick spots of commercials. We'll return. We begin to hear from the minister, and then we round up the conversation on Galamsey.